The following program is rated PG-13. Parental supervision is advised.
All right. Let me get my clothes on here. Put my pants on. All right. Nobody's naked, right? All right.
Poseidon, the ruler of the seas and all that dwell within them. His rule over the oceans is unquestioned. There are those who serve him with tridents and with infinite knowledge of all things submarine. They are known by many names: coners, weaponeers, the merry men of Sherwood Forest. But by Poseidon himself, they are called the Subvets.
Man battle stations missile for WSRT. Spin up all missiles.
This is a United States man-o-war. Her mission, to maintain the freedom of the seas. The time, now. The place, any one of the world's many trouble spots where an enemy, real or potential, threatens the survival of the free world.
Well, the USS Connecticut report is out. Seems like we've been talking about this for a long time, but the Navy has released the redacted report. What happened and why? Who's responsible? And we have lots of questions. It's the Subvets. I'm Dave.
I'm Eric.
And we are glad to be with you today. I'm going to apologize up front. My voice is gone. So if I hack a little bit or if I sound a little weak, that's why. Not sure what's going on, Eric. I don't feel bad, but my voice is just shredded. So there you go.
I've just been wondering who the best pilot is underwater.
Well, we know who it's not. So years ago, 2017, you might remember this. USS Fitzgerald, a Arleigh Burke class destroyer, has an accident at sea, gets rammed by a freighter.
Yep.
And my inbox was full, and I mean full, of people explaining to me in detail, people who had never in their lives been to sea, explaining to me in great detail how this had to be a Russian hack, a terrorist attack, because there was no way that this modern destroyer didn't see this freighter coming. And I said to them then, before the report ever came out, I said, number one, you've never stood a deck watch. You have no idea what you're talking about. And number two, you have Tom Clancy disease, this belief that everything works all the time. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't, nor does it work the way you think it does. And it turned out that the Fitzgerald was a colossal example of how to do everything wrong. And I do mean everything wrong. And yet, whatever happened to lessons learned? Because here we are again.
Mm-hmm. I can kind of give a segue into that. So submarines are definitely getting more modern. I mean, with each block of Virginia class, I don't know where it's going to stop, block 11 or something like that. But you get more toys, and yes, that provides a lot of safeties. But the first question you have to ask when there's an accident that happens is, well, I can give you a reason why an accident happened. Was there humans on board? And if the answer is yes, that's why accidents happen.
I read through this report last night, and in fact, as I was speed reading through it, I was texting with Eric, and initial reaction, first reaction upon the first speed read through this thing was, and I can say this in 2 words, I'm appalled.
I'm appalled, Dave.
This is beyond, I don't even know where to begin, but it has me asking lots of questions. It has me asking lots of questions about you know what the number one question I come out with is? And I asked my wife this morning. Were we really as good as we thought we were? Or were we just luckier?
Yeah.
Used to think we were really good. But now I'm starting to wonder if we weren't just lucky.
So I went through a range of emotions reading through that. And I mean, there's a lot, we can get into some details. And I mean, first it was one appalled, and then one of rage, anger. I mean, I think I went through all the different cycles of feelings that you can have, and then feeling saddened, and then worried, of course, too. I mean, throw that in, worried for, the fleet we have, worried for our capabilities of country to, obviously, it looks like we're getting into a time where sea battles everything's going to the underwater domain. I mean, this is the same thing we've talked before about World War I and World War II with the Pearl Harbor, thinking that battleships was where it was all at. And then we found out it was aircraft carriers. Well, now we're starting to find out that aircraft carriers is not it either, because everybody's fielding submarines in water. And obviously, as far as Navy battles or Navy contention or Navy warfare, it's going to be fought in undersea domain. And we not only did we have to be as good as we were before, but we need to be better now because there's more players out there. And you read that and you get really mad. So, but thinking this morning, trying to reason with it, they didn't have to release this report so quickly, for one. And there's a lot of details in this report, even with all the redactions. So they didn't have to do that. But it makes you wonder if there's some people in the Admiralty, if you will, thinking, maybe we do need to put this out because we need to do a self-reflection of values, because you look how they held everybody accountable. I remember I brought up when it happened, I'm like, why did they even let the Cobb? You'd think they'd let somebody stay to keep continuity of leadership. Well, now you know why. When you read it, you understand why everybody had anything to do with this really had to be relieved. And so you kind of see where the Navy's going. Hey, there was a lot of things that went wrong, and we need to do some self-reflection. We're going to throw this report out because we want not only everybody in the fleet to read it, but maybe even give the public some insight on the complications of what running a submarine is all about, and the safety and danger that's inherent to practicing underwater warfare. And here's what happened.
And of course, submarines and submariners are going to read this, and all the way back to the DBF guys that are still holding on, as well as the Cold Warriors. And I would imagine the new kids today the new kids on the block, can we call them that, are going to read this as well. And I don't know, man. The more I read this, now I was a weapons department yeoman for years, and I was responsible for typing up lessons learned. So every time we'd screw something up, and we did screw up things on a fairly regular basis. We at one point we opened the wrong hatch when we were greasing muzzle hatches, and all the grease guns and the safety nets and everything were on a different hatch. And as they were getting ready to come open, hatch 6, 3 of us said, wait, what? That's not. Mm-hmm. And Squadron 17 CO was standing right there. And he said, I don't think that's the right hatch. And they did it anyway. Mm-hmm. And dumped all that stuff into the water. Yeah, no. Right. Now, there wasn't anybody on it. Nobody got hurt, but a lot of equipment got lost. those kinds of things were not unheard of, nor were they irregular. And we typed up pages. As I recall, Eric, that was like a 20-page lessons learned because we opened the wrong hatch. Do they not do that anymore? I mean, the Fitzgerald and McCain, if those two incidents alone should have caused the entire Navy. Back in the 80s, you remember the safety stand down after the aircraft carrier people were having problems?
I remember safety stand down was a number of problems. Yeah, there's a reason.
The entire Navy stands down because of the aircraft carriers having accidents. We were like, well, what does that have to do with us? Nothing. But it did. It had to do with the fact that we had to think all the time about the dangers involved here. You would think that the Fitzgerald and the McCain incidents would have caused the entire Navy, every navigator, every CO, every XO, every command master chief would have said, you know what? There, but for the grace of God, go I. And yet it seems like in reading this report, it seems like USS Connecticut, and I guess I'm not going to pull my punches too much here. I'm going to say I wasn't there. But in reading this report, the impression I get is these people were more about a dog and pony show. They put on a show for the inspectors. And as soon as the inspectors left, this is what the report says. This isn't my opinion. The report freaking says, as soon as the inspectors left, as soon as there was no oversight, they just went back to doing things half-assed.
Well, it exposes that there was some kind of culture that was set. And I almost see, you know how society's getting into where everybody's afraid to speak. This is just general society. I'm not even talking about submarines. Everybody's afraid to speak up because they just don't want to. They don't want opinions in the public square, whatever. Thinking well, they're just talking out of turn, or they just don't understand this political leaning or this subject matter. They just don't have no right to speak. Blah, blah. In submarines, because it's so dangerous, everybody needs to have the right to speak. And the report says that too. That's in the report. Whose responsibility? Well, it was your responsibility, quartermaster, or what? Who's responsible? Well, it was your responsibility, navigator. It was your responsibility for not watching. I forget what the thing that pings the bottom. The sound.
Fathometer.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, it was your responsibility, Cobb, because obviously you weren't addressing it. You were letting everybody get it. It was your responsibility to make sure the crew was following safety procedures and following an array of things, so that's why they relieved everybody, because they held everybody accountable. And it's interesting how the captain is ultimately responsible, but you see a little bit where you go, well, they said it was this way, so I just assume I could do this. And it's not, but it almost seems like there was a culture there that everybody was trying to make the captain happy, including the chief of the boat. And I don't know that. Again, I wasn't there, but I've been in corporate America for 20 years, and I've been in a number of companies because, telecommunications has been very transitory with all the buyouts. So I've seen different leadership styles. I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly. And it just seems like maybe that got onto this boat. And I think somebody that's saying, this is not how submarines are supposed to be. Everybody wears dolphins for a reason, because everybody needs to be able to say, I don't think that's a good idea. And then the command instructor shouldn't get mad at them. Even if that person's an E3, you shouldn't be getting upset with them. They spoke out of turn because they were trying to point out some dumb.
If somebody wearing dolphins raises a question about safety, is this a safe way? Everybody on that ship should have been saying, wait, think about it. Is it safe? And if it is, explain to him why. And if it's not, stop doing it. And yet no one, not a single person on that ship said that we know of. Now, it's possible someone did and it's redacted out of there. But to our knowledge, no one said, hey, is running at 24 knots in uncharted waters during field day with the forward bow planes retracted.
Yeah.
A good idea. And, oh, by the way, the forward fathometer is not working either. And nobody seemed to say, is this a good idea? It's easy to say, well, the captain should be relieved. The XO should have been relieved. The navigator, Cobb. But really, I taught school of the boat for years. I would say that anybody that was wearing dolphins that walked through that control room during that field day should have been asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm appalled that no one that we know of, again, it may be redacted, no one seemed to say, hey, what are you insane?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not, I was telling Cammie this morning, my wife, my first week in submarine school, January 1982, one of the first lessons we had was, you remember that drawing, the safe operating envelopes?
Mm-hmm.
This sure strikes me as being outside of that safe operating envelope.
Absolutely.
And I can't imagine. Now, again, I wasn't there. I don't know. See, this is what bothers me about this is, do you get to a culture where people who should know what to do are afraid to do it because whatever? Because I like to believe about myself, Eric, that if I had seen that, I would have been raising bloody hell. I would have been pounding on the XO's door saying, dude, well, I would have said, sir, but no, are you insane?
Mm-hmm.
Would I have?
To me, it just looks like, it was like a corporate America. You got a CEO surrounded by a bunch of yes men. You got a VP surrounded by a yes man. And it can go further down until you get somebody in the supervision level going, this is not a good idea, and here's why. And it could be the director, and it could be the manager. And for some people, what we see in society, now I'm not talking submarine, I'm talking general society, where we see in society, if you want to keep going up and advancing your career, whether you're first line supervisor to manager, director, at one point, if you start saying, well, this is not a good idea because of this, and it violates our policy as a company and blah, blah, blah. Well, you just spoke up, your career's over with. Mm-hmm. And then, it's into your career path. And I'm like, is that what, and I see that goes on a lot in our society, but is that coming on board a submarine? It should never be there. Ever, ever, ever. How many times you were taught this in school? You could be the E4 that just got to the boat or just got your dolphins. Or I remember him even saying, this submarine school right here is designed so you can get to the boat and you can safely save the boat because you were the guy in the room when nobody else was, and you noticed something and you said something, or you hit the form C, or I'm starting to wonder that people are afraid to, they come in and smell something burning up. I'm like, no, I don't want to be that guy that calls away a fire because it's going to get everybody up out of rack, and they're going to be upset with me. And I called away a fire 6 months ago, and they're just going to think I'm that guy that calls away fires all the time. What's happening?
What happened to the question? You remember this phrase? I'd rather talk about it on the surface than not be able to talk about it.
Right.
Better safe than sorry. And I don't know. And this is the thing. I stood fire control supervisor for a long time. And before you go on watch, every time you go on watch, you go upstairs. You go up to control. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking. You go up the ladder to control, and there you get the captain's night orders book. And this is the captain speaking to every watchstander that is a senior watchstander. And it says in there specifically what you were to do. And one of the things that Captain Conway and Captain Baumstark always wrote in there, if you're not sure, ask, say something. And
I read into that's where it stopped. People were afraid to say anything.
But I'm wearing dolphins. If I'm wearing dolphins, it occurs to me, Eric, this is my ship as much as it is his ship. Now, I realize he signed for it, but this is as much my ship as it is his. I have a responsibility to safely operate this ship. And it doesn't matter if I'm an FTB back in the engine room and I see something, or if there's an engineer and missile control center and you see something. You're wearing dolphins. You're qualified this ship, which means that you are responsible for the safe operating of this ship. Mm-hmm. And those dolphins say that you know what it's supposed to be. And these guys, I don't know. I wasn't there. Don't know their command culture, but I've read this report. And this report tells me these guys why'd they even give them dolphins? They're just myrmidons. They're just doing exactly what they're told to be done.
Because it's in such a dangerous environment. Submarine culture is just different than regular, like Army out in the field, where you do have to follow what an E4, E5. You better obey that order and suck it up and follow it. And I wanted to throw this out there too, because, if you get into, and this is what we found out, because we were like, well, maybe they were spying on the Russians or China or my aliens. I would have been better actually if they tangle with aliens. But if they're getting into a situation where they're actually doing a mission, or they're getting into a combat theater and combat, yes, that's when rank and file falls in. But you're still reporting out why you can. Hey, Captain, don't recommend this. Recommend this depth, or recommend that, this course change. And then you let him make the decision. He makes the decision to follow. You go through. But that's not what was happening here. They were doing field day.
Field day at 24 knots in uncharted water. With the bow planes retracted and the fabometer not working. A number of things. And chose a different an uncharted navigation path. Overridden by the captain. Well, we should be good. Should be. Yeah. Probably be good. Yeah. It'll probably be okay. And I'm appalled. I mean, again, I was prepared to say, back then when we first talked about Connecticut, I was prepared to say, look, these guys, they did a great job. They did a great thing. God bless them. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to say that there is one outstanding sentence in this entire report. And we'll get to that before the end. But most of this report makes me sit here and go, seriously, what are they even teaching them in sub school anymore, let alone in the qualification process? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a reason why we got checked off on air systems, on hydraulic systems, on navigation systems. There's a reason why, as an FTB, I had to go to sonar and stand there with the sonar watch and learn how sonar worked, and radio and navigation. And there's a reason why I had to stand a watch as a helmsman and planesman, so that you knew. Yeah.
Ninja room, lower level.
Yeah, I didn't have to do that one, but I would have if they'd let me. But
I did that one.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't want to seem out of place, because again, maybe there's a factor here I don't know about. But based on this report, I'm flabbergasted, and it's broader than just Connecticut. I mean, we have watched in the last 5-6 years now, we have watched multiple major accidents in the Navy, all of which are traced back to, pardon my French, shitty watch standing, procedural noncompliance, which is the biggest thing in the freaking world to me. You got a procedure, you don't follow it, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. I don't care what rank you are. I don't care what privileges you think you have. I don't care what degrees you have, what awards you have on your chest. You don't follow procedures, you're an idiot. And you don't deserve to be on a submarine or a ship or even in the freaking Navy. But seems to be the way of things. And I spent an hour last night talking with a friend of mine who's retired Army aviation. And he's having the same issue and we don't even know about this because we don't pay attention to it. Army aviation is having the same problem. Helicopter crashes because people aren't following procedures. People are too tired. They're being overworked. I don't know, man. I always thought field day was stupid anyway.
Can you imagine somebody manning the thermometer and they're on their cell phone? I mean, obviously you're not getting cell service, but can you see that? Or surface ship? Right. Can you see that happening? You're close enough to where you can get a cell service in there. Instead of looking at their gear, they're staring at their phone because command structure lets them, because they don't want to hurt their feelings.
Well, that's what we learned about the Fitzgerald is that we had we had officers on watch, was a tactical officer and the officer of the deck hated each other, wouldn't talk to each other. Mm-hmm. At what point do you get a command structure that even allows that? At what point does an officer in the United States Navy say, oh, I don't like that person, so I'm not going to give them this report about the safety of the goddamn ship? And yet that's where we are. And I don't know.
Yeah, because it used to be, like you were saying, lessons learned. I mean, we did this every time we got off a watch at note 2, because, there you're getting ready to go launch a rocket off a submarine. You're getting ready to test the capability. Well, the whole reason that damn boat was built, and you're gonna take it right to its engineering limits. So everything needs to be checked and double checked. So we were always hard on each other. We'd have man, you jacked that up. Or we'd be willing to admit that we're faulted as humans, even though we feel like we're the best of the best. But, you be hard on each other for a reason.
Yep.
And then after you yell at each other, you're screaming at each other. And then you go out and have a beer and you hug and you make up because you actually love, even though all that was bad and that shouldn't have happened, you learn from it, you move on, you're able to operate more safely. You're a better crew for it. You're a better division, better boat. It's supposed to all just run right up the ladder. That whole culture, which starts in school. The teaching starts there, how important it is to have submarine dolphins. And apparently, there's no amount of gear unless you take the humans right off the boat. There's no amount of gear that's gonna negate everything that could possibly happen. As long as you have humans on board. And right now we do need humans on board. But maybe we're going to get to a point. That's why, people are going to say, well, that we need to focus more on drone technology. And, well, now we need to come up with the communication underwater structure so we can just fight things with drones underwater because people are idiots and people can't get along anymore because that's a society we live in. Because people are afraid to speak up because that's a society we live in.
I had the honor this past week, Friday. I went to the inactivation ceremony for the USS Oklahoma City. Now, the Oklahoma City is an LA class fast attack. She's old. She's 34 years old. She's past her prime. And it was remarkable to me how proud her crew is of her. And of course, Oklahoma City is my hometown. So, I have a certain level of attachment to a ship that I never served on. And she wasn't even commissioned until after I was off the boat. So I never played against her or anything like that. But what I noticed is a lot of her crew came back for this thing. And a lot of her crew, very proud of what they accomplished, very proud of things that they did. And you got the impression that this ship was a hot runner. I mean, Tom Clancy notwithstanding. Instead of Dallas, he should have been using Oklahoma City. It's like 5 of her former commanding officers are admirals now.
Yeah.
3 of them are still active, so they may become admirals. You never know. Here's a ship from my generation that's going away. But these guys, they understood their ship. They understood the tech. They understood how it worked. They understood why it mattered. And I don't know.
And that's the way, what you just said, like 5 of the commanding officers are admirals. That's the way it should be. That shows that there was boat passed down culture. Yep. Sort of like you keep saying about when you got your dolphins, you got your qualifications, you're working on the backs of other people who've done it 100 years before you did.
One of the things that was said was the CO, 2 COs before the current guy. The current CO of Oklahoma City was the XO under the CO two terms ago. He went to his thing and came back as the CO. And one of the things he said about the crew was they were trained by this guy and the guy that followed. I have a great crew. They were this guy trained. And, there's a certain pride you could sense in that. And I had the opportunity to talk to both of those COs. I had a chance to talk with the CO of the Providence and the Cobb of the Providence. And I felt good. I really did. I felt like our Navy's in good hands. Then this report comes out and I don't know. I guess we should hit the high points I don't want to go through line by line of the report.
No.
There are some things here in this report.
The report's out there. We're going to put a link there. The report's out there for anybody to read. So.
July 10th, 2020. Commander Submarine Division something 5, Squadron 5, CSDS. I don't know what that is. 5. Submarine Development Squadron 5.
I don't even know what some of these new rates are.
That's got to be Submarine Development 5. Formally counseled the CO via a letter of performance. Letter addressed inadequate supervisory oversight, ineffective accountability practices, and superficial self-assessment. This letter of performance came out after Connecticut hit the pier in San Diego. Mm-hmm. They hit the pier. They had a letter sent out, and one of the things they said was, in account of accountability practice. Who's responsible for this? Who's being held accountable? Superficial self-assessment, meaning that they were essentially saying that the captain, his actions in self-assessing his own command structure were, quote unquote, superficial. This necessitated, This necessitated putting an inspection team aboard, for which the ship, of course, prepared heavily and performed magnificently for the inspection. And that's one of the things they noted there was that, hey, they did a great job for the inspection. But as soon as the inspection team left, things went back to the way they were.
Yeah.
And this led to the situation where they're shooting along an uncharted course in waters that are not well charted at a certain depth. We don't know specifically what that depth is because it's redacted, but it was deeper than 160 feet at 24 knots with the bow planes retracted. Now, again, I'm not familiar.
Maybe the bow planes are supposed to be retracted.
They are.
Knots. I don't know.
Yeah, high-speed operations, they retract the bow planes. Apparently, the diving officer either didn't know that or forgot that. I'm willing to give him the chance. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that it didn't matter in the situation that follows. But he did not recognize the fact that the bow planes were retracted. Now, I don't know about the maneuverability of a Virginia-class submarine, but it seems to me with the bow planes retracted, you're totally dependent on the stern planes, which may not be
Seawolf. This is a Seawolf.
A Seawolf, right? You're correct.
One of the specialty boats.
Right. So it may be that the bow planes increase maneuverability, but also create drag at high speed. Who knows? When drag, of course, creates noise. Who knows? I talked to a guy that was a 688 sonar tech the other day, and he was saying that the Seawolves and Virginias at 20 knots are quieter than the 688s are at the pier. So it would make sense to retract those. Who knows? The bottom line is they were doing 24 knots during field day in uncharted water, and it was repeatedly noted that the forward fathometer was not working correctly. And the quartermaster of the watch had reported it wasn't working.
Right.
It's not working. Can't get a reading, can't get a fathometer reading. And nobody's response to that was, well, I guess we should slow down and come shallow. It was.
Well, and maybe, Dave, because of the capability of these new boats, maybe 24 knots in open sea, because they said they were in open international waters. Maybe that's normal. But all the other stuff isn't. The uncharted path, the fathometer not working.
There's an interesting line in here, and you and I talked about this last night, about the sonar report that there were biologics ahead.
So trace, yeah.
Now, I don't know
what's that tell you?
I don't know about your boat, but my boat at 24 knots, we're not hearing anything on sonar.
We're blind as a bat. Traces are just snow at that point.
Right. But somehow or another, Connecticut seemed to be able to identify. So that tells you something. I'm not sure what it tells you, but it tells you something. At any rate, when they hit the bottom at 24 knots, the diving officer, he reached over the helmsman and planesman and grabbed both sticks and yanked them back. At which point the foreplanes, the forward plane guy, I don't know what they call him, informed the diving officer that, hey, the planes are retracted. That's not doing any good.
Yeah, because at this point, all you got is speed and the stern planes doing that. And work, so. They
didn't reverse. They ordered a depth of 160 feet. Apparently the OOD was badly injured, broke a scapula during this thing. They're trying to get to 160 feet. They overshot the 160 feet and broached the boat. Great. From there, the boat started sinking again because, again, maybe I'm misreading this, and I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt, but it appears from the reading of this that the chief of the boat or chief of the watch either didn't know how to align the ship to deballast or couldn't align the ship for deballasting. Something was going wrong, and the ship started sinking again. They got back down to about 100 feet before they finally figured it out, did an EMBT blow, went back to the surface, and had to run a constant low-pressure blow because, the ballast tanks were basically ripped open. They found rocks in the ballast tanks.
They had to get a significant water, and apparently, and it says in the report, they forgot about the depth control tanks.
Yeah.
Again, something you think the chief of the watch would say, well, that's in my arsenal.
Right. So I don't, it's maybe they were scared, maybe they were panicked. I don't know. The one good sentence that comes out of this whole thing is there's a sentence in here that says that the damage control efforts of the crew, the procedures they took, quote, were effective, unquote, meaning that our damage control training was on point. And great. Fantastic. Still can't get past how we got into this situation was definitely not on point. And my question, Eric, is this widespread? Do we have a bigger problem in the fleet, or was this just one guy?
That's why I'm wondering, some smart admiral that's still a little old school say, you know what, we're going to put this out. We're going to let everybody read this, because maybe it is fleet wide. Maybe it is multi-service wide. Maybe it's on the surface fleet. So maybe this is what we need to do. And I'm sure that admiral's probably getting some heat. Why did you release this report? You know how many calls I'm getting right now as a congressman? You know how many calls I'm getting? Yeah, good. Yeah. Because maybe you should, especially if you got a son or daughter out in the fleet, maybe you should be calling your congressman. And hey, is that boat or ship my kids on? Are they operating safely? Are they doing, because all that high tech gear doesn't mean nothing. It really doesn't. There's humans on board. Those things could be overridden, not paid attention to. They'll bark at you. They'll tell you warning, warning, warning. They'll flash all you want. But if you just say, well, that's all right, continue on course or follow this order, well, this is what's going to happen.
I keep coming back to this question. Were we better than this? Now, I think, and I'm sorry if this offends you younger folks, I'm going to say, certainly on Michigan Gold from 83 to 88, we had a situation where we broached the ship because we were over dependent on technology. We had a thing called SCAP, Ships Control Application Program. It was a joke. Everybody knew it was a joke, but it lulled us into a false sense of security one day and told us that we were at X depth at X speed, when in fact we were, because T-holes are naturally buoyant. I don't know if you knew that or not. They tend to float up. So you have to drive them down. You have to keep them held down all the time. Anyway, the ship was drifting up, ended up on the surface. Captain not happy. And he went around to the ship, the entire ship, and he taped over EB green masking tape over every digital depth gauge on USS Michigan. Yeah, do not use that. He came into Missile Control Center and taped over my digital depth gauge. And I said, sir, I
can't reference it.
I don't have anything to do with that. And I kind of need to know how deep we are, And he looked at me, Captain of the USS Michigan, Captain Frank Mark Conway III, looked at me, took his cigar out of his mouth, and he said, Bowman, you want to know how deep we are? Go to control and read the goddamn seawater gauge. And I said, aye, aye, sir. And he was right. And we learned that you can't rely on those systems. You have to be conscious of everything that's happening. You got to pay attention to what you're doing. This isn't a game. I know.
I thought. I don't let me break into it, but a thought just came to my head. So you're aware of Captain, or I think Commander Marquet. His book Turn the Ship Around. You know his story. He took control of the USS Olympia, and apparently the same thing was going on. Apparently the culture on board was one where they weren't being retained. They couldn't wait to get out. Everybody hated the Navy. So there was something going on that boat, and I think he got out over 10 years ago. So maybe this is a problem, and maybe there were some boats that had problems even when you were in, because there was the Cold War that that just didn't get circulated. But I'm hoping it wasn't a lot. But so it tells me this has been going around. If Captain Marquette's going around and he's doing speaking tours about turn the ship around and how you can use it in today's corporate America for leadership, which is a good example. He did turn that boat around because there was problems, and the leadership. He found out right about the entire leadership culture from the Cobb down was broke, and instead of firing at everybody and getting mad at him, he took what he learned as a submariner and all the training as a leader and fixed that boat, and then it went from being the worst boat to squadron, one of the better boats in the squadron, if not the best. So it's a good book. It's a good example. But okay, I don't know if it's unfair to just say all boats right now messed up. Maybe it's been going on longer than we think, and maybe this is the first time that some admiral had the tenacity to say, here's the report, let's all look at this. Maybe we need to look.
So here's my question. As a submarine veteran, as a member of subvets, as a member of the Submarine League, we see what happened. We see the report. Like you said, the report was probably released just so we could see it. We are, I mean, I'm, God, nearly 35 years on from my submarining days, and haven't actually been on a submarine since 2018. What's our responsibility, Eric? What should we be doing? What could we be doing to even be useful? I mean, I'm going to say this again. I'm wearing dolphins. As far as I'm concerned, USS Connecticut is as much my responsibility as it is anybody. Mm-hmm. I may not be assigned to that ship, but what can I do to help? What can I do to help Colorado? What can I do to help, Oklahoma City? What Providence? What can we do as I don't want to say former submariners because I don't think we are, but as, former Navy people, what's our responsibility to this? Do we need to be talking more about it? Do we need to be, encouraging? Do we need to be critical? What should we be doing?
I think a little bit of all that, yes. And I think the last thing we should be doing is, we should be mature about it. Yes, it like I said, when you read this report, you're going to get angry, you're going to get upset. All these different emotions are going to, at the end of the day, we still got submarines to put out there. We still have threats out there that we need to keep in check and negate and defeat. So we still need to be the best at it. So we can't forget about this. We got to learn from this, forgive each other, train it, figure out how to fix it, and then train to be a ton better. You're never going to get it 100%. This is not, like we said at the beginning, humans on board, it's never going to be 100%, period. But you can certainly get as close to 100% as you can. And maybe that number might go from 90 to 100 at times, but you should be above 90 all the time. You would think.
I should think you'd be 4-0 all the time, but I understand they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, we should, as veterans, maybe we do just need to be critical and to speak our mind and let them know how I feel, and then like you said, we've been out for years, so maybe that brings our other cultural experiences outside of the Navy. So that brings those experiences and maturity to the discussion too. So maybe there needs to be an open continuity between veterans and the current serving active duty submarine community, so we can make sure that we're doing the best we can. And maybe that's why the report was released. Maybe that's because they didn't have to do that, as far as I'm concerned. Not that much detail, anyways.
All right. It's a remarkable thing. If you haven't read the report, we'll put it on the website at subvet.com and on the Facebook page, facebook.com/groups/the-subvet. And, I don't really have a whole lot else to add to this other than they brought the ship back. And that's remarkable to me, especially now, because when we first heard this, we thought they were just creeping along the bottom, hit something.
Sneaking and peeking on a mission somewhere.
Now we find out they're flying along blind.
Doing field day.
The fact that nobody was killed, the fact that we didn't lose the ship, to me is just miraculous. But God bless EB, because they're sure building boats strong like they always have. And this thing came back. So we don't know. I did get to when I was driving through Puget Sound Naval Shipyard the other day I did get to see the dry dock where the Connecticut might be. Nobody knows for sure. It's completely covered with plastic and tarps and everything else. But
at least the report didn't say the captain had a dog on board too. So I mean, that would have really that would have sent you over, I think, Dave.
There's that. So I'm going to say something here. Eric and I talked about this briefly last night. We'd like to hear what you think about this. Comment on our Facebook page. Send us an email. My email, DolphinDave@slipperyfish.com.
Eric@thesubvet.com.
And we'll share those. There seems to be a reticence on parts of the folks on the page to talk about this. We don't want you to be afraid to talk about it. Don't get into classified stuff, obviously. But what do you think? Do we have an accountability here? Do we have a responsibility to help as best we can? Or is it just not my problem anymore?
Not my Navy.
I don't feel that way, but maybe you do. But we'd like to hear from you about it. And, I every now and then I had lunch the other day with that Rear Admiral Gauche, Commander Subgroup 9. Maybe that's the kind of thing that I had introduced into a conversation. Right. Who knows? And these are the kind of things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, we older generation submariners, we're concerned, and we want to know what we can do to help. And maybe there is something.
And hopefully, at the end of the day, it just makes everything better.
Which, of course, is the goal. The more silver dolphins we get, better off things will be, and the more qualified people will be, and we won't have a problem with it. And on that note,
like this video, subscribe, share, definitely share this.
Who knows what we might change. I'm DolphinDave, Dave Bowman, FTB1. You can get me at DolphinDave@slipperyfish.com.
And I'm Eric Ryle of thesubvet.com, and you can get me at eric@thesubvet.com, and you can follow me on Facebook/group/the and on Twitter/thesubvet as well.
And we are.
You
ready? The
Subvets.